Imagine walking into like a flagship luxury car
Oh,
dealership.
right, the really high-end ones.
Exactly. The architecture is just stunning. The glossy terrazzo floors are gleaming. The ambient lighting is, calibrated to a perfect 4,000 Kelvin just to make the paint pop.
Yeah, they design every single
Yeah.
detail.
Even the acoustics are engineered so that every time a car door slams, it sounds incredibly solid. So you're completely sold, you have your checkbook out, ready to go.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
But then you look around and there isn't a single salesperson on the floor.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the finance office is hidden behind like a decorative waterfall or something.
Yeah.
And when you finally just try to give up and walk out, you realize the exit doors are actually locked.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. It's a visually flawless room,
Yeah.
but it's structurally incapable of actually doing business.
That is honestly a fantastic illustration of the disconnect we see between aesthetics and commerce.
Right.
And frankly, it's exactly how the vast majority of businesses treat their online presence today. We see these incredibly heavy, visually stunning digital brochures being built, but they fail entirely at their primary functional job.
Which is pretty important.
Exactly. And that job is giving the customer a frictionless path to actually engage and hand over their information.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. We have a very specific mission today for you, our listener. We are exploring the mechanics of turning a website from, a static piece of digital art into a high-converting machine that captures leads at scale.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is. And our foundation for this discussion today is this really comprehensive web design guide published by the team at Viral Chili. It's titled 5 Lead Generation Features an Elementor Web Design Service Should Build into Every Website.
Yeah, and to set the baseline here, we need to look at why Elementor specifically is positioned as the focal point of the strategy in this Viral Chili guide.
Right, because there are a million ways to build a site.
Exactly. But in modern web architecture, the ultimate enemy of conversion is friction. Usually, to get high-level lead generation functionality on a WordPress site, you end up paying this integration tag.
Oh, I know this pain.
Right. You bolt together a form plugin, then you get a separate pop-up builder, a totally different conditional logic engine, and like a third-party CRM connector.
And suddenly you have an incredibly fragile house of cards.
Yes.
You have conflicting JavaScript libraries loading on top of each other, which inevitably slows your site down, or it just breaks completely when one single plugin runs a random update.
Taking that a step further, it limits your design capability too. When the tools don't natively share a data structure, you can't easily trigger events across them.
That makes sense.
But Elementor works as a unified ecosystem. By handling the form building, the logic, and the pop-ups natively within one single environment, you essentially eliminate all that technical friction.
Which frees you up for the real work.
Exactly. That allows a web designer to focus entirely on the psychological friction of the user.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even optimize the psychology of capturing a lead, we really have to acknowledge the physical reality of where that user is actually standing.
The physical environment, yeah.
Right. The data from Viral Chili makes it super clear. The vast majority of your traffic is not sitting in an ergonomic chair with a mechanical keyboard and a 30-inch monitor.
No, they are absolutely not.
They are on a tiny 6-inch piece of glass.
Which completely rewrites the rules of engagement. I mean, if you look at the completion rates, desktop users finish forms at about a 47% rate.
That's pretty good.
It is. But mobile users abandon forms at a totally catastrophic rate in comparison.
Well, I mean, we've all been there. Trying to fill out a badly designed form on a phone is like trying to thread a needle while walking down a busy street.
That is exactly what it feels like.
You tap the field, the browser forcefully zooms in, you try to hit the next field, but your thumb hits a checkbox instead, and suddenly you've opted into a daily newsletter you do not want.
Yeah, and you're hitting on the physical constraints of capacitive touchscreens there. A human thumb covers a specific pixel area.
Right.
Apple's human interface guidelines, for instance, they actually recommend tap targets be at least 44 by 44 pixels.
Oh, wow, that's specific.
Very specific. If a web designer crams form fields too close together, the phone's operating system struggles to parse the exact touch coordinate. It guesses, it gets it wrong, and the user gets a fat finger error.
Which is so frustrating.
Completely. So the guide specifically mandates that any Elementor build must utilize single-column layouts for mobile, You never, ever force a user to pan left or right.
We both know the standard practice is single columns on mobile, but there was this micro detail in the viral chili breakdown that really caught my eye regarding field labels.
Oh, the positioning.
Yeah, they argued that labels, like the actual text saying first name, must sit above the input box, never to the left of it.
Yes, and that is a direct application of cognitive load theory and eye tracking studies.
Really? Just from moving the text.
Absolutely. When you place a label to the left of a field, especially on a narrow mobile screen, you force the user's eye into a Z pattern.
Oh, I see.
They have
Yeah.
to look left, read the label, dart their eyes right to the empty field, then diagonally down to the left for the next label.
It's an exhausting visual ping pong match.
Exactly. But when the label sits directly above the input field, the user's eye only has to track along the y-axis, straight down.
So much simpler.
It seems like an insignificant microdetail.
Right.
Right. But when you are asking someone to do work, and let's be honest, filling out a form is work, every single micro-frustration drains their finite reserve of cognitive energy.
That makes total sense.
By simplifying the physical act of eye movement and typing, you preserve their mental energy for the actual decision to convert.
And we can't ignore the back-end mechanics of autofill either.
Oh, autofill's huge.
Yeah, if you aren't using the correct HTML autocomplete attributes in your Elementor fields, you're basically forcing the user to type their full address manually on a tiny mobile keyboard.
Which nobody wants to do.
Nobody. If a browser can seamlessly inject their data because your fields are tagged correctly, you bypass that friction entirely.
Right.
Which actually ties into how you handle longer forms. If you absolutely must have a multi-step process, a visual progress bar is non-negotiable.
It establishes an immediate psychological contract.
Mm.
The user knows exactly what kind of time investment they are making before they even begin typing.
So assuming the architecture is flawless, you have this frictionless, single-column, properly labeled mobile form.
The perfect form.
Right, that's great, but it honestly doesn't matter if the user never actually looks at it.
That is the hard truth.
Which brings us to the tool that everyone in the digital industry has a love-hate relationship with, pop-ups.
Ah, yes, pop-ups.
And I have to push back here on behalf of you, the listener. In an era where users are so hypersensitive to digital clutter, are we serially advocating for interrupting their experience? Everyone hates pop-ups.
It's a completely fair challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is that pop-ups are toxic.
Because they usually are.
But what's fascinating here is what the telemetry actually tells us. The viral chili data shows that strategically deployed pop-ups achieve an average conversion rate of 9.7% on landing pages.
Wait, really?
Yes. Almost 1 in 10 people who see them hand over their information. You just cannot argue with the math.
Nearly 10% is a massive number.
Yep.
But how do we bridge the gap between they mathematically work and they make me want to immediately close the tab?
The dividing line is context. Pop-ups only fail when they are blunt instruments.
Give me an example.
Sure. If I walk into a retail store and an employee immediately shoves a clipboard in my face before my eyes have even adjusted to the lighting, I'm irritated.
Yeah, I'd probably walk right back out.
Exactly. That is the real-world equivalent of a 0-second on-load pop-up.
Mm.
But a modern Elementor setup utilizes 2 vital, highly nuanced triggers: exit intent and conditional logic.
Let's break down the mechanics of exit intent first, because it is genuinely clever engineering.
It really is. So on a desktop, the browser window is essentially a grid. JavaScript runs in the background, constantly monitoring the X and Y coordinates of your cursor.
Cracking every move.
Right. But it isn't just looking at where you are, it's calculating velocity.
How fast you're moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When the Y coordinate of the mouse moves toward the top edge of the viewport, where the back button and the close tab button live, and it hits a specific speed threshold, the script realizes you are abandoning the session.
And right in that millisecond before they click away, you fire the modal.
Right. It's a final intervention.
Yeah.
And the psychology is entirely different because they were leaving anyway.
You have nothing to lose.
You have zero risk of interrupting a reading session because the session was already over.
But on mobile, obviously, there is no cursive to track. So how does that work?
The logic shifts. Mobile exit intent typically triggers based on a sudden, rapid scroll-up velocity.
Oh, because they're scrolling up to find the address bar.
Precisely. When a mobile user wants to leave a site, their first instinct is to aggressively swipe up to reveal the browser's navigation bar.
That is fascinating. But what about when they are actively engaged? You mentioned conditional logic earlier.
This is where you move from being an annoyance to acting as a digital concierge. Conditional logic means the pop-up engine reads session variables before deciding what to show.
Session variables like what?
It looks at time on page, scroll depth, or even the specific category of the blog post they're reading.
So, okay, if I'm on a sauce website and I've been reading a deeply technical documentation page about API limits for 4 solid minutes, you don't just serve me a generic subscribe to our newsletter pop-up.
No, that would be totally tone deaf. The logic engine detects your specific behavior and serves a hyper-targeted modal offering a white paper specifically on scaling API infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, it is no longer an interruption. It is a highly relevant solution to a problem you are actively researching in that exact moment.
Okay, so pop-ups act as these highly contextual micro-interventions. But what does the main stage look like?
The landing pages.
Right. If we are running paid traffic, or we have a massive email campaign, where are we actually sending these people? The Viral Chili Guide makes a strict, unyielding distinction between a standard web page and a dedicated landing page.
And honestly, blurring that distinction is probably the fastest way to set your marketing budget on fire.
Strong words.
It's true. The data is incredibly stark. A landing page built with a single, isolated call to action converts at 13.5%.
Okay.
But the moment you add 5 or more navigational links to that page, the conversion rate plummets down to 10.5%.
That's a 3% absolute drop just for giving the user more options.
Exactly.
It reminds me of the classic paradox of choice. A standard website is like a massive department store or a choose-your-own-adventure mall.
That's a great way to look at it.
You walk in, there are escalators, dozens of departments, social media links in the footer, and About Us page.
Yeah.
It's built for exploration. But a dedicated landing page needs to operate like a VIP museum tour. There is exactly one path and one exit.
In user interface design, we refer to this as the attention ratio.
The attention ratio.
Yeah. On a standard home page, the ratio of interactive elements to the primary conversion goal might be 40-1. There are 40 things I can click, but only one thing you actually want me to do.
Which is overwhelming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On a dedicated landing page, the attention ratio must be 1-to-1. Hick's law dictates that the time it takes for a person to make a decision increases with the number of choices available.
So you just take the choices away.
By stripping the navigation bar entirely, you eliminate decision fatigue. Every single pixel of visual hierarchy pushes the user toward the form.
The structural rules they lay out for this are incredibly precise, too. Obviously, keeping the primary value proposition above the fold is standard practice.
Sure.
But the placement of trust signals, client logos, security badges, short testimonials, they argue these must be positioned in immediate physical proximity to the submit button.
This raises a really important question about the localized nature of digital anxiety.
Localized anxiety.
Yeah. Handing over personal data triggers a massive spike in psychological friction. The user subconsciously asks, will this company spam me? Is my data secure? Will a pushy sales rep call me at dinner?
Right, and the exact moment their cursor hovers over the button is when that friction is highest.
Precisely. If your trust signals are buried way down in the footer, they do absolutely nothing to mitigate that localized anxiety at the top of the page.
That makes perfect sense.
Placing a recognizable client logo or a single, powerful review directly adjacent to the form acts as an immediate psychological counterweight. It answers the anxiety at the exact point of action.
And structurally, the guide notes that for desktop, the form should sit in the right-hand column, but on mobile, it must drop below the primary messaging.
Yes, context before commitment.
You never want a raw form to be the very first thing a mobile user sees before the context has been established.
Always, you have to earn the right to ask for the data.
Which brings up a really dangerous trap. Let's say you have the perfect 1-to-1 attention ratio. Your trust signals are perfectly placed. You have earned the right to ask. How do businesses still manage to sabotage this?
Unchecked data greed.
Yes. The statistics from Viral Chili are brutal here. Listen to this. Forms with 3 fields convert 50% better than forms with 4 fields.
Just one field difference?
Let me repeat that. A 50% increase in lead volume simply by deleting one single question from your form.
When you translate that into customer acquisition costs, the financial impact of asking a useless question is staggering. Every additional input field acts as a physical barrier.
I used to compare this to dating. It's like you don't ask for their social security number and a 5-year career plan on the first date. Just get their name and number first.
That's a perfect analogy.
Or honestly, it's like a well-designed video game tutorial. When you boot up a complex new game, they don't drop a 50-button control manual on the screen and say, memorize this before you can play.
Right, you just quit.
They let you walk around. They teach you to jump. It's incremental. Your data collection needs to be incremental.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this methodology is called progressive profiling.
Progressive profiling.
Yes, an optimized Elementor setup isn't trying to extract the user's entire corporate biography on the very first interaction. You capture the bare minimum required to establish communication, which is usually just a name and an email address.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, if I only get their email today, how do I get their company size tomorrow?
It relies on session cookies and CRM integration.
Okay,
When the user fills out the initial short form, the system drops a tracking cookie in their browser and creates a lightweight profile in your database.
got it.
A week later, when that same user clicks a link in your email and returns to a new landing page, the Elementor logic engine reads that cookie, it pings the CRM, recognizes that we already have their email address, and dynamically swaps out the email field for a new question.
Like job title or company size. That is brilliant. You are slowly building a robust data set over time without ever presenting a form that looks intimidating.
It transforms the entire interaction from what feels like an interrogation into a continuous, low-friction conversational experience.
Now, the guide does explicitly carve out an exception for high-value B2B offers.
Yes, that's an important caveat.
If you are gating an incredibly dense, highly proprietary industry report, a B2B professional understands the value exchange and is totally willing to fill out 7 to 10 fields.
But even then, you don't just hit them with a massive wall of 10 text boxes, right?
Right, you utilize multi-step forms.
Yes, you break those 10 fields across 3 visually distinct screens. It fundamentally changes the perception of effort.
How so?
Well, answering 3 quick questions on screen, 1 feels effortless. By the time they get to screen 3, the sunk cost fallacy kicks in.
They've already started.
They've already invested the effort, so they are highly likely to complete the final step.
Okay, we have the architecture down. We have conditional pop-ups, focused landing pages, and progressive profiling. But none of this matters if the invisible glue holding it all together fails.
The performance.
I'm talking about technical performance and load speed.
Speed is the ultimate silent killer of conversion. The viral chili data draws a very hard line here. Pages must load in under 2 seconds.
2 seconds. In a world of heavy hero videos and complex background animations, that is an incredibly aggressive target.
It is aggressive, but the consumer's threshold for latency is practically 0 today.
We're so impatient.
We are. The telemetry shows that every single additional second of delay beyond that threshold drops conversions by an estimated 7% or more.
Wow.
And if we look back at our mobile users, they have even less patience. They are operating on cellular networks, they're dealing with latency, packet loss, and signal drops.
So what's actually happening in those 2 seconds that makes it so critical?
It's all about time to first byte and DOM rendering. When a user taps your link, their phone has to resolve the DNS, download the HTML document, parse the CSS, execute the JavaScript, and render the visual elements.
That's a lot of steps.
It's huge.
Yeah.
If you have an unoptimized Elementor site loaded with render blocking scripts and massive uncompressed images, the browser essentially chokes.
And the screen just stays white.
Yes. And at 3 seconds, the user hits the back button.
This is exactly why having a designer who actually understands the backend is vital. They need to know how Elementor optimizes images and removes unnecessary code.
Absolutely.
They need to implement aggressive caching and serve images in next-gen formats so you get the visual fidelity without the massive file size bloat.
Exactly. Performance is not a feature, it is the fundamental prerequisite for conversion.
And speaking of conversion, I really want to hone in on the final micro-interaction here, the actual call to action button.
The CTA.
Right. The guide details the physical design, using high contrast colors and ensuring there's enough padding to make it easily tappable on mobile. But here's where it gets really interesting.
The copy.
Yes. They focus heavily on the semantic framing of the button copy itself.
The psychology of a single action verb is wild.
It is. They specifically warn against using the default word submit. When you really think about it, submit is a terrible word.
It's awful.
It implies yielding. It sounds like I'm yielding to a corporate overlord or something. It is entirely focused on what the user is giving up.
It triggers loss aversion.
Exactly. But they suggest pivoting to action verbs like get, download, or schedule. Like get implies that I'm receiving a gift. It completely flips the psychological transaction from a loss to a gain.
Which perfectly illustrates why a web design partner must commit to relentless A/B testing. You cannot just rely on intuition.
You can't guess.
No. You might think download now is the strongest copy, but the data might prove that Get Your Guide outperforms it by 12%.
Because it's not about what sounds good in a border marketing meeting, it's about what actually drives behavior in the wild.
You have to run multivariate tests. You test the button copy, you test the headline, you test a 3-field form against a 4-field form, you split the traffic, control the variables, and let the data tell you what the visitor actually wants.
Let the market dictate the winning architecture.
Exactly. And you track the metrics that actually matter. Completion rate, time on page, bounce rate, and ultimately your cost per acquired lead.
So what does this all mean when you step back and look at the big picture?
It's a paradigm shift.
It really is. For you listening, if you take these 5 core principles, frictionless responsive forms, highly contextual exit intent pop-ups, focused landing pages, progressive profiling, and sub-2-second load times, this is the exact blueprint that separates companies that grow rapidly from those that stagnate.
Without a doubt.
It is a philosophy of brutally prioritizing conversion over pure visual flash.
And practically speaking, this changes how you evaluate a web design partner. If you are hiring an agency to build an Elementor site, you must demand a portfolio with real lead generation metrics, not just pretty screenshots of desktop homepages.
Anyone can make a pretty screenshot.
Right. Ask them to explain their mechanical process for optimizing mobile tap targets. Ask them how they configure ongoing A/B testing.
Just their knowledge.
If they can't answer those questions with technical depth, you're hiring a decorator, not a conversion architect.
A decorator versus a conversion architect. That is a crucial distinction to keep in mind.
And before we close, I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over, which actually builds on the conditional logic and progressive profiling we discussed from the sources.
Oh, lay it on us.
We talked about how a site can dynamically hide form fields and change pop-up messaging based on a user's session data, like how they move their mouse.
Right.
Well, consider what happens when A/B testing becomes entirely automated.
Oh, wow.
Soon, 2 people might visit the exact same URL and see completely entirely different page layouts, colors, and words, perfectly customized to their unique psychological profiles in real time.
That is mind-blowing.
The question isn't just how we capture leads today, but how prepared you are for a web that dynamically redesigns itself for every single visitor.
Wow. A website that literally shapeshifts to deliver the perfect psychological trigger. That is a wild and somewhat intimidating thought to end on, but so important. Remember that beautiful, utterly useless car dealership we talked about at the beginning? Don't let your digital presence be an empty, locked room. Re-engineer the architecture, remove the friction, and make it fundamentally effortless for your prospects to say yes. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning and stay curious.